green.
No.
Your paper towel.
Hey, wake me up if I fall asleep, okay?
I'll kick you.
Just don't snore.
Just don't lean too far backwards.
That was my chair. They tried to bring my back up here.
It has a lock, don't it?
No, that one doesn't work. That's another one sitting saying, I think she loosened it.
That's when the leftovers that go to highway after her office is redecorated.
No, I'm good with this one. That's mine.
Not tonight.
Oh, this is fun.
Nice and sturdy.
Or 6:30.
Six.
Cool. All right, time for the pledge. Eric, will you lead us off?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Is Dave gonna come up?
I'm not sure. Have a phone call. All right, well, tonight's meeting is not about debates or anything like that. It's basically for people different departments to tell us what their proposals are. Let's take in information and go from there. So,
One by one.
yeah, one by one, who's first?
We're gonna just go line by line.
Yeah.
Clock is, this clock is fast, just FYI.
Okay.
My clock says 6:01, happened to me last time, about 4 minutes, I'll fix it tonight. Dave's on time, even though back there it says he's on.
Well, Tiffany, you want to set us off here?
Yep. What, do you want to start with the budget or do you want to start with people's requests?
Let's start with the request.
Okay,
We're gonna do it by the lines, or are you just gonna go to the other sheets that you gave us, like the one through?
well, I think it makes sense to go by these sheets. So these are the back half of your packet sheets.
Oh.
Packets upstairs in
That highway?
Just listen.
Town clerk number one?
Town clerk number one.
the hot seat right away.
So the first, I think 9 of them are income pages. For the most part, most people's income, what they project they'll bring in will be the same. For a lot of it, the only way besides town residents coming forward with projects, the only way it will change is if we change the schedule of fees. So like, take buildings, for example. Tracy thinks about 10,000, we've been pretty close, in that 10,000, but if we want that number to go up, then it's gonna be more the schedule of fees part has to change.
That would be an Andy question though, right? Because if we change the schedule of fees, we have to do the code.
So
Do the code,
I
right?
did talk to Andy about that because with Bob doing the connection pieces now and the money not going to Core and Main and coming into Sue, we have to add it to the schedule of fees. He also said that we can do a resolution or local law for it, so then it changes it, so it only has to be changed by resolution and not by local law.
Okay.
So I did kind of have some of those initial conversations with him. I don't know if people want to look at the schedule of fees before, in the next couple weeks to see if it's something that we should be increasing or not. I don't.
Did Tracy say one way or
Tracy
another that he
says-
thought it should be up?
Tracy says we are to the lower side when you look at kind of comparables to other surrounding towns.
We haven't changed our schedule of fees in, I'm not saying 10 years, but it's been close to that. And honestly, if we're talking about raising taxes, we should probably take a really hard look at our scheduled fees first and try to bring them up to what everybody else is in, and then look at what we're gonna do about raising taxes, because if we raise fees to comparable towns, that's gonna drastically change what we need to increase our budget. And honestly, I don't want anybody to think we're in a panic here, because our sales tax is up from what it's been. We're not in a bad financial spot. My only worry is the economy tanking, and then 2 years from now, we'll say, well, we wish we raised taxes percent, instead of having to raise it 3% this year. And that's really my only thought here, but I don't think anybody should panic that we're in a bad spot, because we're honestly in a pretty decent spot. We just have to worry about 2 years, 3 years down the road.
When you say scheduled fees, you mean like when you get a building,
Building permit, or you.
wedding license must be the state,
Yeah.
right?
Right, like, so a lot of SUs won't
Or
change.
automatic.
So that's why I said like more building, planning, zoning, those types of.
Yeah, if you look at ours, we haven't touched them in so long. And honestly, I think people would feel that a lot less than a tax increase.
Sue, dog licenses is Sue's, and we increased that 2 years ago, so I do feel like that's one that we've slowly kind of been increasing. So, do we want this on the agenda for next week? What do you guys wanna see to compare, if that's what we're, just so I kinda know what background information to provide, and
Well, you gave us a chart of what our fees were, right? There's a
they're all
chart.
in the local law. I can print them if people want them, but I didn't want to overwhelm people with a lot of
Well, if
extra.
you could, in the next week, put in everybody's mailbox, a comparable, or at least.
So how, compared to 3 towns, 2 towns?
Well, you don't even have to do a comparable, just put them out there and then people can look up themselves, and I don't know.
No, if you can do it, I would rather her do it.
Well, it's a lot of work.
Yeah, but then all of us is gonna be doing the same thing.
Yeah, but Tracy must have already looked at
Tracy's
something, right?
looked at some of them and we've printed some of them, so I think it'll be just more compiling it
If we
and putting
just-
it together.
if we just-
Are we okay with just 3 towns, or? And I kind of looked at like Sand Lake, Grafton kind of up there, like we kind of tried to spread them out and look at somewhat similar to our towns as well.
I mean, if he already has some of the work done, because like that's probably what you're gonna focus on anyway, is his fees
Right.
right now, so if he had already come up with it, and if he has that,
Okay.
that would be the easiest, I would think.
So that's that. Most of Sue's fees are set from the state, you know,
Right.
certified copies are set through the state.
Yeah.
Marriage licenses, all that's set through the state. So that's,
While we're on the town clerks, well, we have fees here, but, I brought it up before, and I'm gonna bring it up again tonight. I want another position. I want a deputy clerk position for Postage Hill. We're the only town where the town clerk does water tax, property tax, and still runs the office. I'd like to see a third person there. I'd like to see a notary in here. If for nothing else, if Sue gets sick or she goes on vacation, we have coverage. And there are certain things that are, like Harold wants us to work on fixing our problem with records downstairs, being safe for Sue and Tiffany, who honest to God don't have time to do all this additional. It seems like small stuff, but when you pile it all together, it adds up to be a lot of stuff. And I think we need a third person to share between the 2 offices.
I agree, and I think we talked about this a couple of times. Did you allow for anything?
so, yeah. So can we, do we
We had
wanna,
Emma, and we lost Emma.
do we wanna go to expenses then?
Well, yeah, let's talk about it now, we're on third. Unless is that too much? Do you guys want to just stay on track here, or do you want to jump around?
Can we just go in order, so,
All right, go
I
ahead.
would rather.
so I'm not trying to flip papers
All
and
right,
everything?
I'm sorry.
Just as a follow-up for your information, this parallels what Tracy is doing. I have not proposed an increase in water rates. However, let me give you some statistics. With the increase that we got last year, we charged $5.25 per 1,000 gallons. Rensselaer, compared to one of the lowest, they get their water from Troy, pay the same as we do. They charge $5.95 per 1,000. But more than that, we don't charge any minimum. Rensselaer charges $75 a month minimum. I'm sorry.
That seems like a lot.
It's less than 75, but there is a minimum monthly fee there. In addition to a connection charge, I have paperwork in my office. If you want to hook up a residence, you gotta put $1,800 as a fee down, plus $50 for a permit. The only, and as I say, I'm not proposing anything different, but I want you to realize how low we are compared to any other town around. And on disconnects, reconnects, all that, we don't charge them anything. And I like that because it's helping our residents. But if you get, and I don't think the water operation is hurting by not having that. But if it helps the town as opposed to a tax increase, I think we can do something with that.
I for one don't want it to help the town because only a portion of the town gets water and I don't want them.
Yeah, but it wouldn't be, because that money would be staying in water district, so those are two different bank
Okay.
accounts, so they're two different,
So it wouldn't help.
no.
Quite honestly, now that our bonds are maturing and being paid off in Brunswick, rather than paying $300 some odd dollars a month, I actually want to reduce that by at least $50 a year to, right now, it's 300 what is it, $340
It
a
was
year?
403, right now, I think it was 320, hold on, I can tell you that.
I'd like to get that down to around 250.
Let's stay on track.
Sorry.
Okay, so, highway 2 for income, those numbers have changed a little bit,
What page was that?
9.
You don't like 3, 4, 5?
It was all, it's everyone fees really until we look at schedule of fees, those numbers aren't really going to change. So with highway, we've been, budgeting on the lower side because we weren't sure with decreases with state aid and everything. So these numbers should be more comparable to what we get, next year. The state aid line, I don't really know what completely, but now it includes Pave New York, extreme weather, and what's the other one, DJ?
Yeah, I'm just trying to find my spot here. So this year was budgeted for 38,835 because after COVID, we got hit with a 20% deduction. But this year, the numbers we received were for Pave New York, EWR, which is Extreme Winter Recovery, and they added a new one called POP. It's called Pave Our Potholes. It's the same state formula as Pave New York, so it's under the state aid. So all those added up is 75.8. It's actually just a touch over 75.8, but. And
So,
it seems that those numbers are gonna stay. They don't seem to be going back to what we were 3 years ago, so that's why that's increased.
We got our chips back up to.
Chips is up to 114. Last year it was 114.6 because they reimbursed us the 20% they took, and so it's been fluctuating the past couple of years, but it seems like 114 is gonna be the new normal for us, which it used to be 88,000, so it's a little bit of an increase.
so those are those increases there.
Well, while we're on, can you talk a little bit about your budget?
Are we staying on track, or are we just gonna bounce all around, Keith? It's like the third time here.
All right, keep going.
Okay,
I don't want to keep coming back to the same, that's all right.
okay, so for expenses, town board stayed the same. Equipment has been 0, so I didn't put anything in there. Contractual is 1,000. That has consistently been under $100. So I don't know if we want to decrease this number. I left it currently at 1,000, but, it's kind of been some odds and ends type of things that have come out of there. And I don't know if they necessarily are town board contractual expenses. I think this would technically be more like if you guys went to a training or, something along those lines.
I think leaving it in the budget is not a bad idea. We don't have to spend it.
Okay.
It's not gonna affect that much on the size of our budget.
Next is justice. They asked for everything to be the same. So there are no changes there. Anyone have questions on that one? Supervisor is the next one. No changes there. I did decrease contractual to 750. Again, that's another thing that we don't, we've been well under 500 unless we pull money from there to cover a transfer.
He says the actual 2021 deputy supervisor is off, right?
So this is from, so I did these numbers without transfers.
Okay.
So what happened when I came in last August is how payroll was set up, and it did take me like a few payrolls to figure out some of those ins and outs, is to me, if someone's getting a salary, that amount should be divided by the number of pay periods. So for like you guys, it's monthly, so it would be divided by 12. What I found out was happening is it was being taken from one pot to do the whole salary amount, and then going to the next pot, so it wasn't. So like now it is set up so your deputy supervisor line is consistently the same amount for all 12 pay periods. So that's what.
I didn't get paid more than I should have last year, did I?
No,
Okay,
because
I
I
just
was
wanna make
able
sure
to catch that, and
That's a
it was
case.
the same thing with something
That's
obscure.
fine.
Like I found it in some weird
Right.
spots. It just took me a while to figure out those pieces. In secretary, decrease contractual. In this spreadsheet here in the budget, I increased hours from 20 to 35. 20 for everything that happens in that office. 20 hours is not enough. 35, I think it might only need to be 30, but with being just focused on that, I think over the next year, I would see what it truly took hour-wise. So that is a substantial increase there.
That you haven't allowed for yet. You're
It's
gonna
not
go
in
there.
2750.
I did not put it in this, but it is reflected in this budget sheet. So it increases about 16,000, so it goes from 28,600 to 44,590. So it's a significant increase. but the hours are needed to get the job done for that office.
Okay, I'm a little confused, honestly. When Michelle was here, I had her in for 32 hours a week.
So previously, she took some money from the secretary line and some money came from the accounting line. I don't have it split between different departments because why am I sectioning out what's secretary versus accounting? So probably overall, it's pretty close to what she had, but she was splitting it between different. When you looked at the payroll records for her, it was being pulled from many different departments. It was being pulled from secretary, it was being pulled from accounting, she was pulling it from water for accounting.
I remember coming in here and seeing this, she was at 28 hours and she wasn't getting enough for state retirement, so I changed it to 32 hours so that she could qualify. So if you're equal, then I'm fine with it, but I guess you'll show it in paper here.
I understand what you're saying. So when we come down to accounting now, did you just allow for the accounting part? What did you do with
Yeah,
GTM
so
for payroll?
so payroll is a different line, which not that I just realized, but I found out after last year. Payroll expenses has its own budget line, like own code within the state.
Okay.
So it's not even in the accounting line. So accounting is dropped down to 10,000. And that'll cover, Denise coming in and all of those pieces.
Yep.
And then contractual, I left at 5,000 because there's still, like filing of forms and stuff that has to be. I think that's still going to be too high, but with switching it over to someone else doing it instead of us doing it in-house, I didn't want to cut it too short.
So now did you add the payroll line somewhere?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. That's that for secretary. Accounting, we just went over. Next is assessor. Betsy's contractual is significantly higher right now. She is planning as if, we have an unknown project with the PDD and, if it happens this year and is approved and they start the build for tax purposes, she needs to bring someone else in to do the comparable because we don't have anything in to compare it to. So she's estimating is 6,200, so hers is a big jump, but she knows that there's potentially a major project coming down the line.
So the amounts that they have to put in escrow, that won't apply because it's more our responsibility.
So I did ask Andy that if that would be an expense that could be covered under the escrow or if it's fully the town's responsibility, and I did not hear back yet.
Okay.
On that one.
Okay.
But I did ask that, because I know legal and engineer stuff can come out of the escrow.
So that possibly could be a higher number with the escrow? Would that be added to it?
Well, no, so if escrow can help pay for it or covers it, then that number,
We'll
she
go
would
down.
be spending less, but we're planning, because we don't know and it's an unknown expense, potential expense.
And Betsy, without getting into the weeds, how do we do a comparison when we don't have a comparison at town? Do we have to go to another town and see what they did, or,
Yeah, so most towns will contract that out to an appraisal company to have that done.
and they'll come in and do it kind of independently? Is that why we would do that?
So we have nothing similar, so in our case, we don't do that, and since it's brand new and it's income producing property, it's not like a typical where there would be a lot similar comparable, so we'd have to find senior apartment.
So when you say income producing property, what do you mean?
It's
For us or for them?
For them.
For that,
So
right, yeah.
that type of versus a residential home.
Right, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So the calculation on that is different, so it's not just like comparing a residential home to
Gotcha.
a residential home. So, and just to comment on that 6,200 that I put in there, that was we received 3 estimates, and that's the average of the 3. So
Cool.
and hopefully it's not more than that. And that's again, if we need to use it, if it, you know, if it goes forward.
And it may not be this year, you know, based on the last conversation with Andy, it may not be until 2024, but we need to plan for it.
Okay, what is this for?
So
The Schuhart
Schuhart's property.
project?
The Schuhart property, so they would have to do a
Schuhart.
comparison of how to, for the tax, how to assess it.
Oh,
Nothing to compare it though.
Yes, we don't have a similar
So
type
we
of
would have to hire somebody to help.
determine the proper value so we could add it to the tax bill. So, right, I think as a new construction of that size, it's gonna be significant to make sure it's valued correctly the first time, especially for doing another townwide reassessment. We wanna get it on the books correctly, right, on the assessment roll.
Right.
So-
It doesn't matter if it doesn't go forward.
Right.
Not
But
right.
we don't
Budget,
know if it's
right.
going forward, so we need to plan as if
Yeah.
it's going forward.
We'll screw up on that one.
Yeah.
And what's the increase for Michelle? For the assessor?
So I didn't increase hours for her. I think we're okay at the current hours, so it would just be whether or not there's any hourly pay increase.
Because of the Schuhart.
No,
No, she's just gonna be the same, she's gonna be regular,
Right,
nothing's gonna change with her.
right,
Even if
yeah,
that
so
goes
that,
through, even if that does go through.
yeah, I don't think it has,
Different line.
yeah, it doesn't, yeah, whether that project goes through or not, her hours are, we're estimating she's gonna be fine at the number of hours she has right now.
she's budgeted for 20 hours a
Sorry.
week and she's averaging 17.75.
So I think only the thing is, so next year, I don't think we're gonna be doing an annual, the automatic renewal of the senior, the age senior citizen exemption like the governor did for the last 2 years where we opted into that.
We talked about this at the last meeting.
So, this year, if they don't do the automatic renewal, we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna have all those residents come in, we'll have all those forms due. So I think we'll be right closer to the 20 hours, on average, for the year.
Okay, next is town clerk. So similar to what Keith was saying, you know, with the amount of hours that I need to be in that office and then also being able to support Sue, I don't have enough hours in a day. So Sue was asking for a deputy to do 20 hours a week. And it would mean me coming out of that office and finding someone else for that office. So that is a significant increase, but I think with the need for the amount of hours to help with all that, you know, looking at the new water billing system, you know, hopefully some of that will be able to tackle records and all of those pieces.
As far as I know, we're the only town with one clerk and one part-time deputy. It's just a lot to ask, especially if somebody gets sick, when they go on vacation. We have no backup here. It became painfully obvious when Tiffany was busy with summer camp and Sue was away for a week, that it was just, you know, we had our building inspector, and our planning board secretary trying to fill in, and this is just not acceptable.
Well, I don't have a problem, I think that's a fine idea and everything, because again, if someone had to be out, if there was a disability or something, you need somebody there that knows the system, knows the software too, that could step in. You don't want to be in the same position like we were when had the issue with Michelle, so.
Yeah, I mean, people get sick, people have family emergencies, there are going to be times when your town clerk is just unavailable, and there's gonna be times when Tiffany's already doing something, and it's just, this system of two people running an entire town is just unheard of. If you go to other towns, they have more than one deputy, they just do, and whether they're 3 part-time or 2 part-time, nobody
Just
just
asking
does
for
it.
one 20-hour deputy.
We
So
just
you're
don't have
good
enough
with
bodies in the building.
You were staying with the 1850 then and budgeting for 20 hours then?
So, yes, so I left the pay the same because everyone is currently the same pay, but the hours went up to 20 hours.
Say that again? I'm sorry.
So, because it is, people didn't ask for 1%, 2%, whatever, because it's a lot of back and forth math. So currently, what's in this spreadsheet up here, the 16,240 is for 20 hours a week at the 1850. So, 1% or 2%, whatever that happens, that number could change, but that's budgeted for 20 hours a week at the current pay.
I talked to Barb Hanson in Sand Lake, and her clerks are making $19.50 at approximately 20 hours a week. For Christine and Tammy is kind of like a floater. I don't want to say anything bad, but she wishes Tammy was more reliable. And so she's actually looking to bring in a 4th person to, they're not all 20 hours, one's 20 hours, the other ones are filling the gaps.
I guess, maybe a question or a comment we could go into executive session about? Is that okay?
Absolutely.
So we're not talking about it?
Yeah.
On camera, but, okay.
Good idea.
Anything else for town clerk?
Is the contractual 550 or 5,500?
Nope, I forgot a 5 in there. Hold on, I can fix that. That's down to when we get to the bottom of this, without separating mailing and supplies, Sue was able to bring that down because now we can, I don't say bulk order envelopes and stuff, but order them so all the departments can share, and so we're gonna save money because we're ordering more at a time, of envelopes and that kind of stuff, and not having it, oh, Betsy needs her envelopes, but she only needs 500, and all of that.
Come with the stamps on.
What?
You guys know what come with the stamps.
No.
That'd be good.
Like stamps, like actual stamps, or you meant like, oh,
Yeah, well,
like I know what you mean, yeah,
Yeah.
okay.
forever stamps.
Yeah. Oh, you're joking.
No, we're using the
Make it indicious.
machine, the stamp machine right now.
Right.
Those envelopes cost significantly more than just the stamp added onto the cost to get the pre-printed stamp ones. Attorney costs. The contraction is significantly higher. So in talks with Andy, depending on what happens with Water District 2 and that going, so I don't say depending on what happens with Water District 2. As we move into certain parts of Water District 2 and need the legal piece of advice, that'll be an above and beyond Andy's typical duty. So that is significantly higher for the contractual because the above and the beyond stuff comes out of that line. If Water District number 2 goes through, then part of that income that comes in for Water District 2 replenishes the general fund. But until Water District number 2 goes through, then it's a general fund responsibility.
So I got that. So 2021 budget, he had contractual for an additional 18. Is that how I read that?
In 2021 budget, the contractual was 18.
And then year to date this year, it's 8,600.
Yes, and that'll go down once we get reimbursed from 9-year for the additional attorney for the lawsuit.
So that's that extra money that he could bill us and if he
Yeah,
needs to.
so if
but
it's
not
like an
necessarily.
above and beyond typical duties,
So then you put the 15 into the 20 and get 35.
yeah.
Gotcha.
Any questions on that? Engineering is the next one. This is for like town engineering services. This one is also another significant because if we need Wayne for Water District 2, then that'll be a general fund expense similar to Andy.
Or any engineering. Not just that, I mean, we had the discussion the last time and we were wondering how other towns operate with their engineering. And Wayne told me that all the towns he worked for, every bill that he sends comes out of one fund and general fund. So if he comes and does work for highway or comes and does work for Tracy and building, it doesn't get billed out of their budget. It comes out of ACO.
So you had mentioned before about the landfill and the survey and all that. Is he gonna have, I would assume he'd be involved in that too? And there's like the bridge for Lake Mauer Road, so
Yep.
do you feel that this is inadequate then?
Well, the survey for the expansion, we just approved that, it's 5,000. But that's just the survey end of it. Wayne feels that his end of it with the DEC paperwork and CAD drawings, probably around another 5,000. He was estimating that it would cost. He said we probably could have everything done for the pit for 10 grand with the survey. It's a rough figure, so. As far as the Legenbauer Road Bridge, that, I got 2 quotes already that are on next week's agenda to approve one of them to get that fixed, so all that's already done. Yeah, there's 2 companies that can fix it for us. So I wouldn't think we're gonna have any expenses coming out of that.
So put in for another 5 though.
Yeah. Unless that's already figured into that, but.
No, because I think that was just the water district.
That was just Water District and then the 1350 that we put there. I also have it, there's times that, and I put it under MS4, but we can all put it under engineer. There's times that Tracy will have, or Tracy, I can't say this time. Tracy, when he's got to do a SWIP or something like that, will have to bring Wayne in. So that is also an additional engineering cost. So that is on the MS4 because we put it as a separate contractual line. Previously, we had never had a contractual line for MS4. So I can roll that into engineering as a whole if we want to just have engineering and not break it out.
I think it would be more clean cut, and BJ's saying that other towns just have like that.
That's what he said, that I think he works for Brunswick and Sand Lake, and that's what they do. As far as any other town around, I don't know. That's just what Wayne was telling me, that towns he works for, that's how they do it.
Yeah.
So did we say that we think it's an extra 5,000 for the
Expansion?
expansion,
Yeah,
the
he
work
was-
they did to help you out, or that they did the engineering for that expansion?
No,
The bridge?
he's, the expansion and the bridge are 2 separate things.
Right. So how
Expansion's
much?
for the gravel pit.
Oh, where do we get the $5,000 from? I guess that's what I was.
That's a rough figure he thinks we're gonna have to spend after the survey's done to finish up the expansion
Oh, the gravel.
of the gravel pit, yeah.
Right now, it's like itemizing
Yeah, no, it's good to know that, right?
instead of putting in all one fund where, oh, there could be an argument that it's better off being itemized.
I mean, I can also do it in sub so it feeds to the same thing if we want to be able to pull it out that way.
Well, we have an accountant now, whatever she suggests we do is probably what she suggests we follow.
Yeah, I was just letting you know how he said he does it. I'm not telling.
Well,
you
I
what
think
he
that's, she's saying the same thing you're saying. Just makes things,
cleaner, like Jim said, yeah.
Okay, the next one is building, as in building inspector and code enforcement, not building.
that's over public health.
So 19 is building, so this is Tracy's department. We put in the MS4 1,000 in, this line as an additional thing, but I can roll it all into engineering if that's what we want. That's Tracy's only increase.
Say that again?
So Tracy for public safety,
It increases engineering fees just like the last ones.
is increasing his engineering for MS4
2,000.
Under contractual,
under contractual. So do we want that all to go under engineering, or do we want it broken out by department?
Well, what's the feeling of the board? Do we want it?
Or do they go by department?
Well, I can put it all under engineering, so on,
You can still put it under engineering, then break it down from there.
so see how this is 0.4? That's a contractual, that's the code gives us for contractual, so 1440.4 is contractual for engineering. I can make it so it says 0.41 and have that be all of highway stuff, 0.42, all of water district, so we can see that breakdown by department if we need to, but it ultimately all feeds to that 0.4 line.
So it would come back here to the building.
What would happen, Harold, is it would be all under engineering,
Okay.
and then it'd be broke down under engineering rather than be highway, building department, every department having an engineering line. It would be just one engineering line and telling you what department it's under. But right now, if DJ does something, he has to put under engineering, Tracy does it, he puts under engineering. Honestly, if it's under one line, it's probably gonna be easier to follow.
I see, but as far as the report goes, can we have that on the report?
Yeah.
Or back here? So we would know which one it was, and it'd be consistent.
Well, under your engineering report, it would be broke down where it's being spent.
That's underneath one report. If you put it under building, 4 point whatever,
That's where it gets lost. That's why we're saying, instead of doing that, we'll just do it all under engineering and break down where the engineering costs are going, rather than every department having an engineering line.
So this 1440, then you're gonna have like 1440.1, 0.2 or whatever, and then you would see whether it was highway or Tracy or whatever, but then it's all under engineering.
Right now, engineering's in every department.
As
That
a
make it clear?
contractual expense.
I kind of like to have it both ways.
Well, I can't put it because that'll not work in both. Okay, so that was the only thing changed with Tracy, was that. Public health coordinator, no changes.
We have a public health coordinator?
Yeah, that's fine.
Tell you about.
Okay, now this buildings is the actual building. So I increased the personnel line, so on your buildings 21 sheet, I broke it out so we could see custodial, office help, which is Emma Grounds. On this budget sheet, we don't break it out by that, but going with the 10 hours a week for custodial is what I put in the budget sheet, because we're not budgeting what, like, we're saying the position is this many hours, but that's not what we're budgeting. So that's a increase. I can decrease it, but I feel like we should be either looking at the actual hours and saying that the position is less hours, or having budget match to what the position is for.
I think you reduce it. 10 hours seems like a lot of hours.
So what are we saying is her hours then?
What is she clocking in, clocking out?
She's 4 to 5 a week.
Then make it 6 or 5.
Okay.
How many times does she?
2 to 3.
Oh, that's fine.
So put it at 6 hours.
Let's look on the board. It's not a big deal one way or another to me.
I don't know, the girls know how she cleans and how long it takes her more than we do.
I'm just not gonna say anything on this.
But does she use the 10 hours?
No, she does not use the 10 hours, but I think if we're not budgeting for 10 hours, we should match. So we either need to tell her it's a 6-hour position, or
If she's been doing 5 hours a week for the last year or 2 years, 6 hours is gracious.
okay, so that number will go back down once I calculate that. Equipment came down because there's not much that's building specific equipment, but we'll get there in a second. Contractual came down because if we're pulling out mailing and supplies, so your paper and that kind of stuff, then that number should go down. It can potentially go down more too. I just did not completely break it down because that is a lot of math to break it down currently. And then we are adding a mailings line and a supplies line for mailing for the postage meter and supplies for the general shared type of supplies. Any questions, or am I keeping going?
Okay. You're still gonna add underneath the 24, you're gonna put that in like you have on the building's 21, you have an additional 5 and 10?
So mailings is 1670 and supplies is down here.
Okay, all right.
I just had to figure out the code, so when I did this, I didn't know the codes.
No, it just wasn't down that far on the
Yeah, so
screen.
it's
Okay.
in the total
Yep.
numbers.
Okay.
Library building, I left those numbers the same. Okay, next is data processing. So contractual came down significantly because when we were doing budgets, I didn't know like there was a payroll expense code that we were supposed to use last year, when we were doing budgets, so that's why that's down significantly.
Don't have any numbers here.
Which one are you on?
Or data collection.
Yep, so 7,000 for equipment, so that's computers, that's, servers, that's the backup batteries, that's any of that data system, and then processing contractual is 3,000. So like that's where Mike would get paid out of. Any questions on that? The next page is general, and I kind of just, this was just kind of a lump of things. Street lights I increased, well, that's on a different line. Street lights I increased just with the cost of electricity, where we're at. Retirement, I did get the projected numbers or what we would pay, so that is somewhat close. I also put website the same.
Yeah, I was just gonna ask you about that. So today, do we pay $1,500 for the,
No, so we currently pay 1070 for website and email.
1070 for, right, which is the towpath and the Zembro?
Well, Zimbra's part of the towpath.
So then, 1070 is the actual, so then, you know, if we get, hopefully we'll get a couple or at least one decent, RFP. I don't know, I mean, I just ran quick numbers. Let's say it cost $5,000, that's on my end. We wouldn't have to pay so let's just say we agree and we pay $5,000, we get the website we want, it's awesome, everybody loves it. Next year, we won't be paying for the towpath, which is probably gonna save us what, a couple $100?
I don't know, we also have to look into it, who will be our webmail or our email host for it to make sure it meets the correct archiving for
Right.
government standards. I don't know what to call that, but
So it's a one-time, if we do it, it's a one-time increase, and going forward, we might save $500 a year.
yeah,
Right,
depending
so
on
like-
what we get.
If everything was great a year from now, that number of 1070 is maybe like $800.
I actually see that number going up,
Why?
because we need somebody who's gonna continue to update our.
That's totally a different thing, like, so managing and maintaining is separate than just doing the one-time infusion of cash to get it to where it needs to be. So that's right, but you're right.
So
I'm just talking about the hosting.
I left this number where it was because a lot of towns are using their rescue funds to update
That's true.
the website. So that's why I left this where it is. If you go back to the
That's a good point.
original directions that we had, updating websites and making remote communication easier was a heavy hit category. So I think what we've used it for is fine because we've got the general allowance now and all of those pieces. But I think if we're able to use it for the stuff that originally kind of came,
That's a good point.
the
Yeah.
directions it came from, I see that being as a good,
It'd be a good use of $5,000.
yes.
So I guess we wouldn't need to, but that's.
So I'm thinking that my kind of thought with it when I was putting the budget together, that this would cover, I know it's called website, but it would cover the host
Yeah, it's
for
mostly hosting.
our email for this year, because that'll have to be something to figure it out. And then the website for the first year can be with rescue funds. And then moving forward, we'll have to figure out those budget pieces, but I figured that would get us through this year since we don't know what that cost. And I mean, you can go anywhere from 2,000 if someone, does it as their side job to, I mean, you look at some of the bigger companies and it's 10, 12, 14, 20,000 to set it up. Um, So that's why I left that there. The other thing was employee benefits. We don't have figures yet for the cost of insurance. So I, use numbers where we're at with padding, for people that are eligible to kind of give us an estimate of where we're at. With that, I feel pretty good knowing, you know, we've spent just under 14 this year. And this will give us some padding as well. I also don't know, do we plan to have to pay New York State unemployment, or do we just pull that if we have to use that line?
Say it again?
So typically in the past, we haven't budgeted for unemployment. We've had one year, I even went further back to see if I could find anything. We, haven't budgeted it. I think it's just like, you have that chance that someone might be out on unemployment. But I don't know if that's something we budget or if we just take the hit if we have to pay unemployment.
Just take the hit. Hasn't been a problem yet.
Okay.
Now, let me just ask about hospital though. You kept that the same as last year because you're still okay with your premiums? You had a cushion in there from before because CPHP is going up 15%.
Right, I think we're under 14,000 and you figure that's 9 months, so I felt still leaving it at the 33. We're still okay there.
Okay.
Social Security is increased too, but I also looked at what we had spent for the 9 months there. And then divided that out by 9 and multiplied by 12 to get us closer to actual, maybe. Any other questions on this? Dog control, everything stayed the same. Youth, so summer help is down, because I went back to planning for 5 weeks. Last year I had hoped to do a 6 weeks this year, but it just doesn't fit with space in the school. So I'm back to planning for 5 weeks of camp. And contractual is up a little bit just with the cost of buses. I'm hoping maybe this year we'll get to go back to school district busing. If not, those costs are higher. Any questions on that one?
Wait, I'm missing something, I want to correct me from. Oh, sorry, my bad.
I'm gonna keep going unless someone has a question. Okay. Historical.
That's true.
Historical Society, everything is currently the same. Seniors and veteran services is the same. It's been the same for years. I don't know if we decide to increase that or how that process works. But that is the same. Next is planning and zoning. So planning. So planning and zoning is another tricky one. Because up until this year, planning board had an attorney, but now with it being a planning and zoning board attorney. So in previous years, we've always budgeted the planning board attorney in there. We split the clerk, planning and zoning time for bookkeeping and all of those pieces. It would be easier if it just came out of one or the other lines. But I can make it work if it needs to stay between the both lines. That one, they're asking for the clerk position to stay at 15 hours a week and increase that pay rate to $19.50. And then it's also higher because the attorney is 15,000, so that's a significant increase from previous years. Does anyone have questions on that?
How much are you attorney for?
A lot.
Attorney is 15,000 for planning board and,
You didn't realize what a bargain we had. Until they hired noon.
their planning board's contractual is down. So we budgeted it significantly higher for this one because of the comprehensive plan. I would say the comprehensive plan is kind of at a standstill.
Not as of Tuesday.
Oh,
So, they had budgeted 10,000 in last year's budget.
yeah,
So they think the only thing that they paid for is the mapping, which maybe is like somewhere around 2,000 or so that you could look up, so they still had a balance.
is mapping what the guy was
The
paid?
GIS mapping, I'm not sure the name of the company that did it, but they used them before because they already had all the natural resources.
So if it's the bill I'm thinking of, you guys said to use COVID money for that one.
Okay, maybe.
Yeah,
Okay.
we did.
So the 10,000 then would still be whole then if we did that, right?
Yeah,
Okay. Because of last evening, when they're 3/4 of the way through. Now
Okay.
they need a professional to put it all together. So there's gonna be costs involved with that. So that was the question, where are they at? Do we need to put something in the budget this year, or do they still have enough left? They're figuring probably, $5,000-6,000 from their understanding of what it is to
So-
compile everything.
that money is whole,
We're rolling over 10.
this year. It's just a matter of pay for this year versus next year type of thing.
Okay, but then if we're rolling it over, we still have to show it.
Yeah, in this year's budget, unless we take it from as an unexpended fund, if it doesn't happen this year and we have to pay, if we don't budget it for next year and we end up having to pay for it next year, we can also take it out of the.
If we leave it the way it is, we have 10,000 available.
We leave it the way it is, what?
We have 10,000 available.
Yes.
Yeah, so do we wanna put that in planning board's budget?
Yeah.
For next year as well, just with the timing?
Just leave it the way it is, and if they need more, you come to us.
It didn't sound like it was gonna be more than that.
So leave that amount in there or leave it as
As
what they
unex-
requested?
As unexpended. You're
Yeah,
saying just roll it.
Yeah, just roll it on expended, and
Okay.
it's available.
okay. Landfill is next. That one is down because of the change. I'm gonna screw up the time frame. Change from yearly to every other year or quarter, the changes of the testing.
We got the DEC to reduce their consent decree requirements on
So that is down there. Highway general. Everything is the same. Highway fund, the highway DA fund. So general repairs is up a lot, but snow removal is down, based on regular hours coming out of general one and just overtime coming out of snow removal.
We can't transfer out of general repairs one, but we can transfer out of snow. So the thoughts are is to start, rather than splitting it up half the year and half the year, we'll take payroll completely out of general repairs one. Overtime for snow plowing will come out of snow one. That's why that's 40,000 instead of the 190 it was last year. So the way that was done in the past was, and then we always had a bunch left over and we'd be transferring it to pay payroll every time. So we kind of changed the way we're going to be pulling from that line, is why there's an increase in that.
So do we want to discuss at this point, or is that another conversation about what you were thinking to create the capital improvement fund with money that you had remaining?
Like the reserve?
Yeah.
Yeah, we can talk about it now if you want to. Don't matter to me.
So would you think that you would have left in unexpended that we could make that new category for the reserve fund?
How much you think we'd have left over at the end of the year?
Yeah.
I mean, every year would be different. Last year, I think we had over 20,000 that we put into unexpended funds that could have went towards,
Something.
the Bleckenbauer Road Bridge, a purchase of a truck. I mean, salt
Radios.
increase, radios. Yeah, I just think it makes sense. Like, Dave made a point earlier that it just because it's in the budget doesn't mean we have to use it. So if it's there at the end of the year, and I don't necessarily need to spend it, put it in something that could benefit us in the future, Most towns do it that way, and then, that's how they purchase a truck. I mean, North Greenbush just did that. I think they bought 3 trucks with their reserve that they had.
So
It just, I don't know, it seems like an efficient way for me, but.
So there's two different things to capital fund versus unexpended. So unexpended would be money left over. Denise was gonna look into the capital fund piece, but capital fund would be something that you would budget on a consistent basis to set aside for equipment purchase.
Well,
That would be the radios, right? No?
You're on.
Once you move it, once it goes from the unexpended and you make that line item, you have to say what you're gonna use that for, and then it can't be used for anything else. So if you say it's trucks or whatever, then it's
In a
trucks.
capital
In
fund.
a capital fund, right?
Or at least if it's just unexpended, you can pull it and the board can approve to purchase
Whatever.
whatever from the unexpended.
Yeah, I thought option B made more sense to me. I mean, obviously, like I said, we can't touch it without board approval, but at least it's there and it's separated from general, and you kind of know where it's going at the end of the year.
So Denise is gonna.
I think it'd be hard for us to budget. I think it'd be hard for us to budget how much we're gonna have left over each year.
Right.
But
if it is left over, then we have that line
we have,
item.
yeah, right.
So she's gonna guide us as to
Yeah,
creating that.
so it's, I don't say it's a little bit more but the startup to get it to a separate thing, just in QuickBooks to pull the old information, so at least then when we look back at previous years, it's all together, it's gonna be work, but so we can choose the capital fund or unexpended. I didn't know if we wanted to necessarily designate in the capital fund way.
But if we take this money that's unexpended and move it into this account, we can use it for things like the radios, right?
Yeah, you could use it for anything that the board and us approve it for.
But the radios are gonna be an ongoing expense.
So the only real,
I'm just confused on why we're bringing up I'm not.
Why? Because the radio to me is something that I didn't plan for,
Right, me neither.
and
So, yeah, it's something that you could use radios for, I guess, but I don't have a number for you right now.
I know, I don't even know what you'd have moving over. I'm just saying,
I'll let you know December 31st.
well, whatever it is, we
But
can
like-
use, whether it covers it or just a portion.
Once this goes back, it's going to also not just be this year, it's going to be going back further years because of how it's been separated. So it's going to make mine and Denise's for bookkeeping and reporting a lot easier because it's already going to be separated. Whereas right now I have to do math to figure out the interest to break it from general and highway.
the only disadvantage is you have to come to the board for approval.
Yeah, you have to, because it's sitting in a fund somewhere. I couldn't just tap into it, you know what I
That's the
mean?
only disadvantage,
Right.
and you're okay with that.
Yeah, I mean, I think it makes sense for us in the future to have something sitting there rather than, all right, well, then I'll just go spend it on something at the end of the year, you know?
Yeah, no, I agree.
Be wise in the long run, you know?
Yeah.
And then, like you just said, Legenbauer Road Bridge comes up, there you go, you got something sitting there where we could tap into.
We don't have any emergency surprises.
Right,
No.
yeah,
And I like at least unexpended because like if we put it in the capital fund to trucks, but say we had to do the bridge or whatever, you can't pull that money. So I thought the
yeah, or like Keith
unexpended
said,
gave us.
radios, you know?
It's something nice.
There's a couple curveballs that got thrown at us this year, you know, that we weren't expecting, so.
Those you can always expect.
Yeah, that's true.
So improvements is the same. Machinery 2 is decreased because DJ doesn't.
Yeah, all I'm thinking that we're gonna need for the following year, machinery 2, would be the yearly payment on the plow truck we bought last year. The yearly loader payment, which is gonna be an increase because due to the availability right now, we're not actually gonna be trading in the loader we have, since they don't have one for us. So last year it was $6,600 to swap the loader out based off of the hours on the machine and the cost of the new one, is how they do the formula. We're not gonna see a loader till probably January, so August and January, obviously we got more hours on it, so it's gonna cost more than 6,000, and the cost of the equipment went up, so that's gonna be a little bit of an increase, and then, some equipment rentals, and then hopefully we're researching on updating one of our trailers, but that's really it for the following season, so it's quite a drop in the budget from what we budgeted in 2022 to 2023.
Down into the contractual stuff. General repairs 4, we increased that. The plan is, so currently, just like, personnel lines,
Yeah,
stuff
we would-
was broken out 6 months and 6 months for general repair and snow. We're just gonna leave everything in general repairs for uniforms, for radios, just those monthlies, and not trying to split it between,
The snow line and the
the
general
snow
line.
and the general, and then so just out of snow will be salt, sand, cutting edges.
Basically just replowing. So that's why there's a difference in those numbers too. I know it looks drastic, but it's actually not as aggressive as it looks.
And then just a little bit of increase in machine 4, so that's like your repairings of,
Yeah, the past 3
The
years,
equipment.
we've either maxed out or gone over that line where we had to pull it from machinery too, just because of I don't know if it's breakdowns or the cost of parts or both, but we've been threading the needle there pretty heavily. And right now we've spent out of that 60,000, I'm already at 58,000 going into winter. So I mean, we got enough left over in machinery too, to where we can pull from stuff, but I think that'd be a wise increase to give us a little bit extra. I mean, we spent a lot of money this year on the mowing tractor. We probably put almost $20,000 into that thing. So that's a heavy line that can get hit from all angles at different times. Bridges stayed the same.
Why bridges the same though and stuff? Wasn't there talk about other bridges in town being compromised perhaps?
Compromised? I'm not following.
Rikers Farm.
Well, yeah, we got Reichert's Farm, but I mean, we're gonna be doing a survey for the right-of-way study on that, but I don't see that costing that much. I don't know if we've ever increased the bridge line in like the past 10 years. I mean, I guess if I could have planned for Legenbauer Road to get yellow flag, we could have increased that, but I don't know. Some years we don't even touch that. I mean, 2 years ago, I think we pulled a couple thousand from it because the wing took the guide rail off of Reichert's Farm. So that cost a little bit, but other than that, I think that got transferred out to go towards that 2020 plow truck. I think you guys agreed to a transfer on that one a few years ago. So, I mean, I don't really know what you would increase it to, other than Reichert's Farm, and then once Legenbauer's fixed, the rest of the bridges are from 2002. They're in good shape.
So Rikers Farm, if we had to replace, we have to replace it, about what would it cost?
The request that we put in for Bridge New York was a little over 700,000 because you had to put a temporary bridge in. So that funding's coming out again in the spring of 23, so we're gonna apply for that. We're gonna do some surveying ahead of time, so that'll come out of that 10,000. I mean, I think the most we ever pulled out of that for Reichert's Farm was 2021 when I had Ryan Biggs do an engineer study on it, and that was a little over $4,000.
What did our engineer this time help with the, what is it, Bridge New York, whatever application together that we didn't have before?
Well, it never cost anything before.
We're just keeping our fingers crossed that our application will get more attention than it has in the past.
But, I mean, I just don't know what we would increase that line for.
Okay.
At this time, I think 10,000 is fine, yeah.
It was just a question.
No, that's fine. And then snow removal 4 is just up 1,000. That's strictly gonna be, like we said, salt, sand, and cutting edges. So, salt went up. If we budget for 1,000 ton, it's gonna cost us an extra 15,000, but because we moved those other things out of that line over to the general line, it freed up what was already in that line. So that's gonna give us a little bit of cushion on that.
And then benefits, I think that's another typo error.
2,000.
Yeah, it's supposed to be 21,000.
Yeah.
So that social security is an increase and state retirement is an increase. I felt comfortable again leaving health insurance where we're at because of what we, because we budget as if all the guys get it, but then not some of the guys participate in buyout. So I felt okay with that number.
The only other thing that I don't know if we want to talk about now, Keith, before we move on, because I didn't put it into this budget, was because I don't have a number yet, is the radio systems. I don't know if you want to talk about that now or if you want to wait, but.
Well, the sooner we talk about it, the sooner everybody understands what's going on here.
So 4 years ago, Wells came to the town and said that our radio system is in disrepair. We can no longer get parts for it. When it breaks, it breaks. 3 weeks ago, they came to us and said, February, they're shutting our radio system down because it's in worse disrepair and they need the frequencies for their new digital systems. So February, it's either shit or get off the pot, I guess is the way I would phrase it. And I don't ever like being backed in a corner. So when Wells says that, I don't know, it kind of just aggravated me because they gave us a quote to update our whole system and it was gonna be $29,000. But at that point, when they told us, we buy into that, we'll keep the system on until all the new equipment comes because we don't have any stock on radios. So it's pay to play basically is what he's telling us. We pay, okay, we'll keep the system on. Well, that's BS. So I reached out to New York State DOT. They use a different company called Capital Digitronics. They have towers on Bald Mountain, and they have a tower in Grafton. To switch over to the digital system with them, it'd be about 14,000, which is quite a bit less. The only problem is we don't really have a spot right now where we can put a digital repeater in their area because they rent tower space up there. So they're working on that for us. But then I also reached out to a company in Glens Falls called Going Mobile. Theirs isn't digital radios. It runs off of the cell phone towers. So theirs runs off of AT&T's 4G network. So there's no repeaters or anything like that you have to worry about breaking. They're quite a bit cheaper. The only problem is cell phone service in town. Like the mountain is spotty. So they sent me 2 demos and I've been trying them all week. I kept a guy in the shop in our steel building. It's horrible for cell phone service. And then I drove every stitch of this town. And I found 2 spots where they didn't work. Both were on the mountain. And then once you drive down the road a little bit, they worked. We can update to that system for 8,000, just a little over 8,000, and have a radio in every truck, which would be the biggest safety thing for me, is having a radio in a truck that we always have. A handheld portable, so when we're paving, I can have one on me when I'm on the paver talking to trucks. And then the base station in the office, so you're inside the shop, you can talk to all the. So I mean, it's my opinion that I think we should go with that one because obviously the price and it seems that it's going to work fine. The only downfall of it is Sand Lake tried them today because we have a same network as them on radios. We can communicate. They're not satisfied with it. They got a lot more dead zones in their area, so they're exploring different avenues. They have a lot more radios, so they were pushing 50,000 with Wells and 30,000 with that Digitronics company, but we were hoping to be able to stay together, but I don't think it's beneficial for us to spend more just to stay on the same radio frequency with another town.
They can still get to you on your base, right? They can speak to you.
It'd be a totally different system. You couldn't talk to them. But I still don't think it doesn't make sense for us to spend more money just to be able to talk to another town when we're working together. Right. You can call, exactly.
Yeah.
So, I'm just flat out, I don't want to do business with Wells after that. That put a sour taste in my mouth. That company in Glens Falls seems really good.
Do they know about these dead spots at this point? Did you tell them?
Yeah, so I called them and these handhelds, they look like a walkie-talkie. The feeling is that the truck radio is going to have an antenna mounted on the roof, so you're going to probably get a little bit better coverage to where you might not have that dead spot or it won't have it as long. And if you get 2 dead spots or 3 dead spots, you just kind of plan around it. I mean, the worst thing that can happen is you have an accident in that exact bullseye of a location, which, I mean, I guess, I don't know, could happen, but